Hey, how's it going? It's Jim. Hope you're having a good day. And today we're looking at another bike over here. And we're looking today at the Rad City by Rad Power Bikes. I bought this bike, as you might have known in my other video. I bought this bike along with the Rad Wagon because a friend of mine wanted a Rad Wagon. And Rad Power Bikes does, if you buy two bikes, you get a $200 discount. So that's what I did. Other than that, I just bought it just like anybody else would. And I just wanted to give you some of my impressions and go through some of the features and hopefully help you out if you're looking at this bike. So just first off, this is some of the stuff the bike comes with. You get a little tool kit, a nice little manual, and it's a what's the poundage on? It's 1.1 pounds, but it's just a little 2 amp charger. So some of the things you can see is Rad Power Bikes, they're pretty strong advertising, and but they've done a really good job on kind of dialing in their bikes. They made improvements, and they're really good on the customer service side. So this bike, just some of the specs from Rad Power Bikes, what they have. So down in the description there'll be a full list of the specs I measured, which some of them differ slightly from what Rad Power Bikes has, but they've really improved on the accuracy of their specs. So I got fuzz in the camera here. But one of the big things is when I bought this bike, I was in between this and the Rad Mini. And the Rad Mini, part of the reason I went with the Rad City is because at that time on the website it said this bike was 57 pounds. Well, I measured the bike so I mostly bought the Rad City over the Rad Mini because of the weight. And this one is advertised at being 57 pounds at the time I bought it. That has since been changed on the website. I measured the bike at 63.8 pounds. Which for a city bike I think is pretty heavy. The heart of this battery, of course, is the heart of this bike is the battery, which with this bike is huge. So it's a 48 volt, 14 amp hour battery, so it gives you over 600 watt hours of capacity. Now, Rad Power Bikes advertises a range of 25 to 45 plus miles, and I'll go in more detail on my multiple range tests in the detail video. But I did a complete to empty battery test. I weigh 175 pounds, and I got right under 37 miles. So that was, right under 36 miles, sorry. And of course, you shouldn't be pushing your battery that far. That just gives you an idea if you really were in a pinch occasionally, what you could get. I would safely, for my use, I safely figure 30 miles. I'm actually in the middle of my commute to work today. And that commute is 27 miles round trip, and I have no problem. I don't have to take the charger with me to work. I just took the charger today to show you. So let's go through some of the features here, and yeah, let's do it. So here's the battery I was alluding to. It is a large battery with a charge port here on top, so you don't have any interference with the pedals. It does have a little LED indicator of the state of charge here on the top side, and it's a little hard to see in the camera, and that does line up fairly well with the display. Those are often not that close together. I also forgot to mention I did a little unboxing video. I'll put a little bit of that video here probably, but the main takeaway from this video is Rad Power Bikes, they've done a good job boxing these up. It has a nice support mechanism for the forks, and the boxes are very beefy. But in both this and the Rad Wagon's case, I had extremely tight disc brake calipers to a point where I had to remove the caliper to actually get to it because the motor's in the way. I could have taken off the rear wheel motor, I suppose. And on the front rotor was warped. When I tried to put it on, it just wouldn't. It was really warped. Rad Power Bikes is really good on customer service. They responded right away, just asked for a picture of the caliper with some sort of straight edge, and within a couple hours I got a notification that another part was being shipped out, and I got it in a day or two. There'll also be a little photo montage that my son took some pictures of. that photo montage, you'll see that I had the front rack accessory. I didn't really like the way the front rack on this bike, it stuck up a lot and it made it look kind of like a motorcycle or something, and my friend that wanted the Rad wagon, she really liked the front rack, so I gave the front rack to her. So in those pictures, the front rack will be on here. You got a pretty nice Suntour fork here with lockout and preload adjustment on the other side. Fender package comes with it, of course. Nice, you know, the fenders, they're plastic, but they seem to not, they don't really make much noise, and they're nicely supported. You got a 40-tooth chainring here in front with nice well-go platform pedals, and the spikes work pretty well, but they are not replaceable. 170 millimeter crank arms with a 12 magnet cadence sensor sitting back behind there, and Rad Power Bbikes does external controllers, so you have that here, which doesn't look awesome, but that's just to be aware of. Chain stay protector, which is nice, and I'm leaving this bag on here for a second, and I'll show you the rear derailleur. 27.2 millimeter seat post, and of course the integrated rear rack. Nice reflective sidewalls. These are 26 inch by 2.3 inches wide kenda tires with this. They're e-bike rated, and they have this K-shield flat protection. You'll see that the pattern is these tires are the exact same tires that are on the Rad wagon. I kind of wish they had went with a little more of a city tire to differentiate between the models, but I know that they are doing this all for sort of cost efficiency. So I got an integrated headlight here, and I'll turn it on. There's a front, it's really hard to tell in the sun, I know. And Rad also recently added these 2 braze-ons for water bottles or different attachments for your locks and what have you. And you can see with this water bottle, it clears the fender. I'm not sure if the other size frame would do this. By the way, this is a 16-inch frame. And really quick, I'm just going to come up to the cockpit here. So you have the pretty easy, so to turn the light off and on, you hold the mode and the up button. And you can see that indication there on the screen. There's a USB charger here, and I might plug it in my phone here in a second. If I do, I'll show that. It comes up with the word USB, so you know you're charging, which is a nice feature. To get into some other menu functionality, you hold the up button, and that gives you average speed, max speed, and then you go back to your current speed. And one thing to note is your trip reset. So it actually reset because it powered off on me. Every time the display turns off, it resets your trip distance, which I find that I wish that was a manual thing to do. And then if you hold the down button, you go into walk mode, which is very nice and gentle with this bike. And I don't want to do that right now because I'll have some stuff falling off. This bar end mirror is mine. I really like having those. You got an integrated bell, nice 4-finger levers with some texturing here, and then you got some ergo ergo grips. They feel pretty nice. They are not locking, but they do seem to be on there. I can move them slightly, but they seem to be nicely situated. This side you have the 7-speed Shimano thumb trigger setup. My only issue is that when I'm riding, I typically have to move my hand to reach this. And this is really to accommodate the twist throttle, which is right here. And this button turns off and on the twist throttle. The only problem with that is there's no real, you can see it sticks out a little bit more, but that's hard to see when you're riding. And there's no indication on here about when that's going on. Just something to be aware of. Another look at of course they have motor inhibitors, so as soon as you hit the brakes, it turns off your motor. Because this is a direct drive motor, there's no gears. It also has regenerative braking. So I have my brakes set up kind of loose, and that allows me to tap them and engage regenerative braking and kind of save wear on the disc brakes. I'm gonna flip this around real quick. All right, coming to this side. So we have mechanical disc brakes, and these are single piston with 180 millimeter rotors. They do a good job stopping it. I have no issues with the stopping capacity. The key is here to unlock and lock the battery so you can have it locked on, or remove the battery, and I'll show you how to remove it in a second. And they have this recessed, this flattened part of the down tube. Just allow it to sit stably, and you can see it's really on there, even though when I got the bike I did tighten up that attachment a little bit. Again, here's a preload adjustment on this side. Of course, you got also the same 180 millimeter disc on the back, and then you got a 750 watt Shengyi direct drive motor that's badged for Rad Power Bikes. Has 40 Newton meters of torque. Yeah, it's a very smooth motor. This combination of this throttle, it's a little slow off the line, especially being this heavy of a bike. And even when you're kind of trying to pick speed back up, you'll notice the motor isn't extremely powerful, but it's super smooth and nearly silent. When I ride, you'll probably have a hard time even hearing the motor engage. Though with this 12 magnet sensor, it engages very smoothly and with very, very little delay. You'll see here the integrated rear rack. It has a very long pannier bar, and I'm going to show you here in a second. Part of the problems with this is because this is very common on e-bikes, where it doesn't have a very good support for your pannier. Even though it has potentially this attachment point here, these are really close together, so not very many panniers fit these different setups. I have over there, that's an RKL bag that has a cam system, so it locks in, and I found that works quite well, even though I'm gonna have to make an adjustment here with a little to hold the bottom support, because it's still too short. This is just real short for most uses. Coming around here to the back is the tail light, and I'm going to engage the handbrake. Hopefully you're able to see that come on. And there's a second flashing mode where it flashes all the time, and then when you hit the brake, it goes solid. And that's all integrated into the battery, which is a nice upgrade that they did in 2019. Again, the nice fenders in the back, no noises to speak of. And the other thing is the kickstand is nicely situated back, so there's no interference with the pedals. And you do have a cutoff here if you need to remove the rear wheel. You can actually that's a speed sensor disconnect, but you have a disconnect, so you can, if you get a flat on the rear, you can take off the rear and unplug the rear motor. I just wanted to show you a little bit more when I was talking about the panniers. You can see I've ridden about 10 miles to this point this morning, and the pannier slid back, and that's what it tends to do. It tends to slide back. You can see how even it's with the extra support, the only place I can really get it, and I didn't flip this one around, is on that fender support. You can see how it doesn't make contact there. And if you come up on the top, I don't have the correct little connectors in here. It's closer. I mean, it kind of works, but it's still, because the bar is so, because that bar is so long, the pannier still wants to slide a bit. And I'll show you the RKL bag real quickly. This particular model, called the Dolphin, has a solid back, but you can still see that hook is missing. So I need to put and tighten this up and put a extra loop down there by the support to hold this pannier. But loaded down, it doesn't really move. You'll see when we do the ride, it doesn't move hardly at all. One of the things that throws me off on this bike is the geometry. And one of the things with that is it has a really high bottom bracket. And the bottom bracket is 13 inches high. So I have this set up for me to ride, and this is right at the minimum insertion point, the seat. And at that point, I can barely touch the ground, especially when stopping. I'm on my tiptoes. I usually have to hop off the seat. So I feel like the geometry is not quite set up perfectly for kind of a city bike. But like as comparison to the Radwagon's bottom bracket is much lower, so you can have the seat with a good leg extension, but then you can also touch the ground. I just want to point out the standover height, because I think that's kind of an important one for e-bikes. And so that ranges from 28 inches above the ground to right in front of the saddle, to like 30, right at this line, 33.5. So even though this is the 16-inch smaller frame, it still has a pretty high standover. So I'm hoping you can see that it flashes off and on USB, and you can see on my phone up there, can you? It's charging. So just a quick point out, it does have 12 gauge spokes. You have a, and there's the rims are reinforced. They don't have reinforced eyelets, but they are double wall. Quick release in the front, bolted on in the rear, pretty common. We got 11 to 34 with a nice low gear, and I'll say as I ride, I tend to ride in like gear 6 or 7 a lot of times. So we got a 7-speed Shimano Acera, which is 2 levels up from the base level tourney in the Shimano range. Also forgot to point out while we were over here talking about the 42 tooth sprocket, you do have a nice aluminum bash guard slash chain guide front and rear to keep your chain on and protected and everything. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the key, and it comes with 2 keys, and just pop the battery off, and then we're gonna go for a ride. So I don't know if I can do this one-handed, so I'm gonna just kind of do it this way. So there's 2 on positions, locked no power and locked power. Then you kind of have to push down and click around to get to the removal. And I use my second hand to push down. And like, one of the only negatives to me is there is no handle on this battery. And being the battery is 7.8 pounds, so that ends up being a little, it's a little bulky to carry. There's kind of a way to carry it here, but just to note. And of course the battery can be charged off or on the bike. And that's a shot of that little locking mechanism that comes down. All right, I'm gonna kind of continue on my, let me go this way. I'm gonna continue on my commute into work. And I'll hopefully give you a feel for how it rides, and I'm gonna stop at one place along the way and wrap this up. But I'm gonna show you walk mode. You just hold down on the naked button, and you see it's flashing walk right there. It's a nice ginger pace here. And it's pretty nice for getting around. So the speed this is a class 2 e-bike, so the speed is supposed to be limited to 20 miles per hour at the throttle. And you can probably see we are able to get a little bit past 20 coming through here. And you can do some adjustments in the display, and I did turn the speed limitation up to 24 miles per hour, I think that's what it is. But I turned it up to the maximum allowed in the display. You can also go to level 0 with no assist, and at that speed you still have the throttle available to you. I'm going to go back to level 1. You see I didn't mention before, but there's a 5-bar battery indicator here. There's a bunch of jump bikes. So I'm just going to ride here and assist level 1, then I'm going to find a good spot to toggle through the assist levels. So I'm just here in level 1. I don't typically ride in level 1. You get a minimal amount of assist. Jump into level 2, you'll see a little jump in speed. And it's still a little kind of minimal. And then we get to level 3. This is the mode I typically ride in, and that gives you a pretty good boost. You'll kind of see that speed jump up there. And I typically ride in this 20 mile per hour range, so when I go to level 4 or 5, I don't really, you can see there's no real change. And that's because I live in a flat area. So level 4 and 5, it doesn't really change for me the top speed. It just changes how much torque is available. And you can see that it does give you a instantaneous indication of how much wattage is being used. So right now I have the throttle, so that's basically maximum wattage. But when I'm riding typically non-throttle, it kind of ranges from 250 to like 400 watts is what it's drawing. and I don't have a second camera right here to aim at the pedal assist because I'm riding the city. I don't feel that's all that safe. But I'm going to pedal kind of quickly, and hopefully, like right there, you can hear it engage. And it only takes it's virtually, hopefully you can, I don't know if you'll be able to hear that because it's so quiet, but the disengage and engaging this motor is very fast. On the display there is a little bit of micro tilt adjustment, so you know, if you just need a better angle it for the sun and the glare, you can do that pretty easily. So this is a little more of a major street, so I'm just going to throttle only. And you can see that's a pretty slow takeoff. So, and I've noticed on if there's a little bit of an incline, that the throttle only takeoff really doesn't work at all. So right now I'm in an assist level or level 5, and I'm basically going to go as hard as I can, just kind of go from the takeoff. So I'm going to do over to that car. I'm going to go throttle only. You can see that's fairly slow. I'm thinking that's nearly the same distance to that next car, and I'm going to go pedal in assist level 5 to show you the difference. Now I was in a higher gear than I probably should have been for that. I hope you're able to see the bike it is quite smooth. Like it's an easy to ride bike. Besides the geometry just being a little, the bike just feels a little bit too big to me. So I'm going to go down this new traffic pattern thing they have in Sacramento here for bikes, with the parking lane on the left. I'm not sure if I like it because cars tend to seem to turn in front of me a lot. Show that real quick. This is kind of like a comfortable cruising speed for me. My pedal effort is quite low. Well, this is where I typically cruise. Like third gear, third assist level, 6th gear. And with a comfortable, pretty easy pedal cadence and effort, I'm able to maintain right at 20 miles per hour and hopefully not get hit. And one thing I want to show is how these fatter tires help on tracks. So you can see the fatter tires help on the railroad tracks, but this suspension on this road, for whatever reason, it kind of bounces. And hopefully you'll see this here in a second. So what I'll do is I'll reach down to lock out the fork, and that seems to help. Alright, I'm on the bike trail here, and I just wanted to note one thing of interest of these handlebars is because they're kind of more of a mountain bar without a lot of swept back. When I'm commuting, I'm kind of resting my hands like this, even though I have a nice upright posture. So it'd be kind of nice if there was a little more of a sweep backwards on these bars for comfort. That's not great. Huh. But just to kind of show you, like I said before, this is kind of my commuting speed right here. Let me get up here. And this kind of comfortable cadence works really well for me. So we got about 350 to 60 watts. and I'm right about 20 miles per hour. And there's a little bit of a delay between the GPS and the display here, but it should be quite accurate. I found it to be very accurate on distance, so I'd assume the speed is also accurate. And I don't use the throttle very much, but what a lot of times I do is times when I've had to slow down, and rather than changing assist level, I'll just give it a quick amount of throttle. And like I said, the throttle cuts out at 20 miles per hour. I did raise the top speed pedal assisted to the maximum, which I'll put on the screen. So right now this rides like a class 3 e-bike, even though the branding down on the frame is a class 2 because I raised the assisted top speed. So I'm going to slow down and hold the camera down towards the motor, and one thing you'll notice is there are some little bit of squeaks, and the rear spokes are making a little bit of noise, and I have about 300 miles on this bike. And one thing you get with e-bikes is you have to do adjustments to the drivetrain more frequently because they're not necessarily designed for the speeds and power that an e-bike can provide. So about 300 miles I kind of expecting to go through and do another tune-up. I think if you're an e-bike owner, it's really nice to know how to do your own basic tune-ups. So show the motor and how that's working. Oh, we got a coyote. Hey there, coyote. You're looking pretty scrawny. Jeez. This is a scrawny looking coyote. Throttle only just so you can see how the motor sounds. And like I said, that little tick is a couple of my spokes. I need to snug them back up. I kind of waited to do it for this video just to show you that, you know, the components need some adjustment here and there. Thanks. All right, so I wanted to stop here along the ride into work. I'm gonna go ahead and film the rest of the way into work, just in case there's anything else I observe or remember on the way in. But got a pretty nice mural here in Sacramento. It's pretty sweet. But there are a couple things I forgot to talk about. One is it does have a really nice comfort seat. I did point out that I'm at the maximum insertion point here, or minimum rather. You can see there that line that I'm right there for my height. I'm 5'10" with a 32-inch inseam, so I think long-legged people might have an issue fitting the bike geometry on this. It does have a nice handle here, which is handy for moving it around on the back, though you probably don't want to do a lot because it is so heavy. On the top of the rear rack, you do have YEP mounts for YEP seats, and it's rated at, I'm pretty positive it's rated at 60 pounds, but it looks to me to be beefy enough. I've sat on it and ridden around just to see, and I mean it's solid rack. And also for adjustability for the riders, it does have, you know, it's kind of a simple adjustable stem. I like some of the other ones where it just has a lever. It's toolless adjustable, but this one you need an adjustment, a tool to adjust. And then, you know, of course, if you adjust that, then you have to tilt the handlebar, which is not that big of a deal, but it's easy enough to do. But I hope this riding around and look at the bike helps you if you're in the market for this one. It's a good bike. It's very smooth and easy ride. The geometry is a little tough, I think. Some people will find it tough to fit them. If you're wanting to commute long distances and you want to have a really good leg extension, that might be a little tough to do. Because ideally, for me to ride this most comfortably, I have the seat lower than ideal leg extension. So for long distances, I'm riding, you know, over 10 miles, so that's a little rough. That's harder to do, in my opinion. But like I said, hope this helps you out. I'll be doing a detailed review with my results of my testing compared to other bikes. And if you have any questions, leave a comment and I'll do my best to either answer it or direct you somewhere or somebody that can. So thanks again. Catch the wind.